gross domestic product on healthcare. So how can this type of problem be solved? How can we deal with managing this changing demographic and continually increasing cost? One approach is to introduce mechanisms to reduce cost and increase efficiency with how healthcare is delivered. And there are a number of different ways to go about this. Going back to the 2008 timeframe, there was a significant amount of money injected into the U.S. economy under the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, and similar things were taking place in Europe and Australia, etc., to drive technologies that would help to facilitate this reduction in cost and improvement in efficiency. And so many of the technologies that were sought after were commodity technologies, communication technologies, computation technologies, things that could be interconnected and bring data together in a way that creates what we now call e-health or electronic health and m-health or mobile health. So along with these computing and communication technologies, the idea was to understand how these technologies could be used to reduce healthcare costs. And so we saw that computation carries with it inputs and outputs. And so on the input side, we see that this field of sensors is significantly growing. Just from 2012 to 2017, here we see some projections and the millions of units of sensors getting out onto the market. We see, all the people who live with chronic disease, and we ask ourselves, with pervasive technologies like this, how can they be used to manage healthcare? So these technologies can find many different homes. Healthcare is really a broad spectrum modality in society. We have the traditional forms of medicine that we think about, where you go into the doctor's office, what we call the acute care setting, and you're connected to maybe many different devices and the hospital environment, and that they gather information about your physiological state and provide diagnostically useful information to clinicians. But similarly, as this demographic change takes place that we talked about before, we also have what's called aging in place occurring. And this is where, as folks get older and older, they don't necessarily want to move into an assisted living facility or like a nursing care facility and that type of thing. And they are looking for technologies to help them remain at home where they're comfortable and receive the kind of medical care that they need. And this is what we call home health care, telemedicine, or in some cases mobile health. So what we're seeing is that as these needs of different stakeholders in society change, we're starting to recognize this growing ecosystem where it's not only dealing with your primary care physician in the office, but then taking the data that they might gather and providing it to the pharmacy to get your prescriptions in line before you leave the hospital even, dealing with home care after you're released from the hospital setting, exchanging data with imaging, like radiology departments and so forth, diagnostic labs that might be running the lab tests and those types of things. And so we see that data being able to support all these different functions across the healthcare ecosystem is an extremely important aspect of what eHealth and mHealth are about. So the maturity that industry needs to experience is sort of multifaceted. We have to begin, which is essentially where we are now, with two initial steps. First, we need to digitize everything. We need to move from paper records and so forth into digital records. Then we need to be able to view and exchange this data. And currently, it's pretty significantly within a single enterprise, so within a single healthcare system, for example. But then we'd like to get to the point with health information exchanges and so forth where we can exchange health-related data between enterprises as well. And then as we become more and more mature in this space, we'd like to be able to derive value and intelligence from this data and ultimately deliver new types of clinical support, advanced clinical decision support with telemedicine, remote health, multiple experts from maybe different parts of the world being able to come together to provide consultation and things like that. And so we have this really broad horizon of opportunities to look forward to in healthcare. So one of the keys to achieving this is to look at what technologies are available to drive this kind of change in healthcare. We are familiar with certain technologies that are pretty much in all parts of the world now. We see things like cell phones, we see wearable computing devices of all sorts, things like wristwatches, pendants, jewelry, etc. And all of these things are loaded with sensors that can be used to acquire physiological information and capture that and potentially use it in very diagnostically and therapeutically useful ways. So if we look at mobile phone technologies alone, mobile phones are everywhere. The map that you see coming up on your screen shows the mobile phone use density around the world. And if we then compare that with the physician density, we see that in different parts of the world, when you look at physicians per 1,000 people population, the density is not nearly as much as the density of mobile phone technologies. So when we look at the functional capabilities of technologies like mobile phones, we see that we have voice and data services that can support mobile health. We have broad coverage of this around the world, and leveraging these technologies by developing software and components that can be enabling technologies for healthcare is one of the key drivers. And so as we look at each of these technologies somewhat closely, so as you take a look at this new screen, you'll see a typical mobile phone has many, many different sensors, things like accelerometers that can be used to tell if elderly people might be falling down, gyroscopes, magnetometers, etc. All of these things can be used for gathering information. And so when we look at things like body area networks, we can see that different sensor technologies can be deployed on different parts of the body to gather different types of physiological data. They can use technologies like, Bluetooth and different communication technologies like that to route that information to gateways like the phone, like the gateway, internet gateway, etc.